We started with a much narrower problem. Can we detect important KPI movements and help explain them faster than a team doing it manually, right? The three things that we focused on. So number one, connect to customer data. So second, define the KPI properly. Sounds boring, but actually, if you think about it, it's one of the hardest parts. And number three, once the KPI moves, automatically search across the dimensions that could be causing it. So that could be device, region, suppliers, customer segments, campaigns, gateways, but look at whatever matters for the business and try to figure out why this is happening. My name is Bhaskar Sunkara, and I'm the co-founder and CEO at Bicycle AI.
This is Code Story, a podcast bringing you interviews with tech visionaries.
Spent 6 months moonlighting.
There's nothing on the back end.
Who share what it takes to change an industry.
I don't exactly know what to do next.
Took many goes to get right.
Who built the teams that have their back.
A company is its people.
The teams help each other achieve more.
Most proud of our team.
Keeping scalability top of mind.
All that infrastructure was
Yes, we've been fighting it as we grow.
Total waste of time.
The stories you don't read in the headlines.
It's not an easy thing to achieve, mind you.
Took it off the shelf and dusted it off and tried it again.
To ride the ups and downs of the startup life.
You need to really want it.
It's not just about technology.
All this and more on Code Story.
I'm your host, Noah Lampart, and today how Bhaskar Sunkara has built the best agentic analytics platform using AI to drive revenue acceleration. Today's episode is brought to you by .tech Domains, and this one hits close to home. Back in 2016, I was building my startup and went hunting for that perfect .com and found next to nothing. So I did what every founder does, settled. Here's what I wish someone had told me. You're building a tech startup, just get a .tech domain. It instantly tells investors and customers what you're about. Don't overthink it. Secure your .tech domain today from any registrar of your choice. This episode is sponsored by Unblocked. Unblocked is the context layer your agents are missing. It synthesizes your PRs, docs, Slack, and tickets into organizational context that agents actually understand. So they make better plans, write higher quality code, use fewer tokens, and require fewer correction loops. If you're running Claude Code, Cursor, or any agentic workflow, Unblocked is worth a look. Learn more at getunblocked.com/codestory. This episode is sponsored by Mesmo. If your team is collecting large volumes of logs, metrics, and traces, but still struggling to get timely answers, Mesmo can help. Mesmo is an active telemetry platform that processes and enriches observability data in real time before it's stored or analyzed. That means lower data volume, lower cost, and faster root cause analysis across your existing observability tools. To see how it works, get a demo at mesmo.com/codestory. That's MEZMO.com/codestory. This episode is sponsored by BrainGrid. If you are building with AI coding tools, but your features keep breaking, you need to check out BrainGrid. It is the product management agent for AI builders. BrainGrid turns messy ideas into clear specs, tasks, and prompts that coding agents like Cursor and Claude can actually build the right way. Ship real software, not fragile prototypes. Start free at braingrid.ai. Bhaskar Sunkara grew up in Delhi, India, and moved to the States when he started working. He has lived in San Francisco for several decades now and has spent a lot of his professional life building systems, infrastructure, observability, and now analytics. His prior startup, AppDynamics, was eventually acquired by Cisco. In general, he stays curious about how things work and likes to deconstruct systems to figure them out. Outside of tech, he's a big sports fan, enjoying football, baseball, cricket, and basketball. In fact, he grew up watching Michael Jordan and the Bulls. Bhaskar noticed that revenue teams were drowning in dashboards, and as such, were not sure what next steps to take in their business. He and his team realized that what people needed was not a retroactive view of revenue, but a proactive one, something more akin to a 24/7 analyst. This is the creation story of Bicycle AI.
The brief behind the story about Bicycle is that it came from a very simple observation, right? Business teams are drowning in dashboards, but they still don't know what changed. Why did it change? And what they should do. So my background, obviously, I was one of the founders at AppDynamics, and where we actually help technical teams, both operations and engineering teams, understand complex software systems and understand how to go from seeing technical signals like high latency or high error rate to actioning them, like what we should do to fix those. But with Bicycle, we're applying the same muscle to revenue teams. Revenue teams, analysts who are basically working on that, but we focus on retail, travel, and payments as the core verticals where a small KPI movement can mean real money, right? So the product is not, hey, chat with your data, but it's an AI analyst that continuously watches revenue critical KPIs, but then investigates why is it really happening and then helps teams take safe next steps. In terms of how we got started building it, we started around the idea that the analytical work should be much more proactive, right? Not another dashboard, not just a chatbot, more an analyst that's always working. It watches the KPIs that matter, finds the segments that explain the movement, pulls in signals and technical systems. But definitely the starting point came from my background in observability and in terms of why software systems were failing. And then we're applying that for basically business systems. But the simple way to again describe this is that we help companies understand what changed in their business, especially with their KPIs, why it changed and what to do about it. Our customers are usually in businesses where revenue is very transactional, which is why we pick retail, travel, payments, marketplaces, things like that. They have a lot of data. They're drowning in dashboards. They have warehouses. They have BI tools, analysts, etc. But what they're not really able to solve for, the pain that we're solving, is what happens when something moves. Let's just say conversion is dropping or authorization rate is changing for a payments company, or a supplier is underperforming. The inventory looks fine, but customers can't buy the things they want. Everyone sees that the numbers changed of all of these examples I gave you, but then the real work starts. And then the most important part of the decision making, is it real? Is it noise? First of all, right? Which segment caused it? Was it in a geography? Was it in a SKU? Was it in a campaign? Was it in a gateway? Was it in a partner, etc.? And then you actually start figuring out why is it really happening, doing the analysis, and that can take hours or days. And by the team has the answer, the business may already have lost money. And that's really what Bicycle automates, that instead of asking, why is this service slow? We're asking, why did checkout conversion drop, or why did bookings fall? And that's basically really the problem we're solving.
Let's move into what you would consider the MVP for Bicycle AI. So that first version that you created, how long did it take to build, and what sort of tools were you using to bring it to life?
So the first version took about a year plus. And then I think the other thing which we can talk about a little bit later in the show is that how things have been changing so much over the last sort of 12 to 18 months or so, right? So first the whole LLM stuff comes up, then the sort of agentic stuff comes up. And so we've been really keeping up with it because it's a very exciting time to build. And if you really harness all that technology and build something meaningful and solve a real problem, I think it's a very exciting result for technologists like myself. But let's start with the first version. It was very focused. We didn't try to build a giant horizontal analytics platform on day one. That would have been really hard and that would have been a mistake. We started with a much narrower problem. Can we detect important KPI movements and help explain them faster than a team doing it manually, right? So the early MVP was basically the three things that we focused on. So number one, connect to customer data. So that could be living in warehouses, that could be living in CSVs, it could be operational data, it could be in a stream like Kafka, etc. So that's number one. Second, define the KPI properly. So again, sounds boring, but actually, if you think about it, it's one of the hardest parts. Multiple teams use multiple words, multiple teams do use different KPI definitions that mean very different things. So we're okay, let's just define it properly. Let's ground on the definition. And number three, once the KPI moves, automatically search across the dimensions that could be causing it. So that could be device, region, suppliers, customer segments, campaigns, gateways, and then because of that, you're actually looking at different tooling, but look at whatever matters for the business and try to figure out why this is happening. What we learned in that process was the model is not the whole product, right? Like a lot of the product is basically context. So this was like V1, because the system just has to know what the metric means. It has to know what normal looks like. It has to know which dimensions matter, has to know which causes are plausible, et cetera, et cetera.
I want to stay on that MVP for now. I'm curious about, and I could probably cherry pick or extract from what you said, but maybe give me a core decision that you had to make in that early MVP and how you built it and how you approached the problem, and then, how you coped with that decision.
So I think the core thing, and this was like the first sentence when I was describing it, where it's, okay, we're not building like a giant horizontal platform. And the decision we had to make is that, okay, let's focus on a particular vertical because eventually, or a set of verticals, because eventually we want the solution to look very vertical, right? The language you speak is very different, right? Retail is different from travel, and travel is very different from healthcare. Healthcare is very different from some other industry. So we wanted to have the whole sort of model grounded in a particular type of business. And we chose transactional businesses where there is some form of looking at something, adding it to cart, checking it out, and then like this fulfillment or delivery. And that's why we picked retail and travel and payments, because it just sounded like that one ecosystem. So that was the big decision versus saying, hey, we're just going to treat it as like a data analysis problem and create like some visualizations, etc. Because eventually what we wanted to do was to create modules that are actually solving real problems, like conversion is dropping or approval rate monitoring is dropping. And how do you handle that? And as it stands today, those modules are basically analytics agents that are just AI agents that are performing that job. And that's kind of how it worked out over time. But that was a big decision that we had to make. And I think you also asked me like the systems we used, and we basically used a mix of traditional data engineering, because data engineering, statistical methods, machine learning, that is what really helps us understand why when a KPI moves, because that's a data science problem. It's not like you could throw like an LLM on top of a warehouse and say, oh, find sort of movement in it. You have to be grounded in statistical methods. And so we use a lot of that. And now we obviously use LLMs for orchestration, all of that type of stuff.
Today's episode is brought to you by .tech Domains. And this one hits close to home. Back in 2016, when I was building my own tech startup, I went on the hunt for that elusive .com. Looked high, looked low, and guess what I found? Nothing. What I did find cost me an arm and a leg. So I did what every founder does under pressure. Threw in extra letters, settled for the less than optimal name. And here's what I wish someone had said to me back then. Noah, you're building a tech startup. Just get a .tech domain. Tech startup, .tech domain. It could not be more obvious. It tells investors, customers, and anyone who looks at your website, really, that tech is at the core of your build. And I've kicked myself plenty since. Especially when I see the clean and sharp names tech companies have landed on .tech. Nothing.tech, 1x.tech, Aurora.tech, CES.tech, Ultra.tech, Alice.tech, Neon.tech, Blaze.tech, Pi.tech. You get the idea. So take it from someone who learned it the hard way. If you're building a tech startup, don't overthink it. Secure your .tech domain today from any registrar of your choice. This episode is sponsored by Plod AI. We've all been there. You're days away from a deadline and you remember a brilliant idea from a brainstorming session, but you can't find it in your notes. It's frustrating, confusing, and frankly, a waste of time. Recently, I've integrated Plod AI, that's P-L-A-U-D, into my daily workflow, and it's a game changer for staying organized. Plod isn't just an app, it's a hardware-software powerhouse. I use the Note Pro for phone calls, Note Pen for my in-person meetings, and the new Plod desktop app for all my virtual sessions. With one click, it records everything and generates an accurate, searchable transcript. But the real magic is the Ask Plod feature. I can literally ask questions about a meeting from 3 weeks ago and get an instant answer. It turns every conversation into a searchable asset for me and my team. Stop taking notes and focus. Turn your meetings into actionable insights with the world's most advanced AI note taker. Learn more at plod.ai. That's Plaud.ai. And use the promo code CODESTORY, all one word, to get 10% off your purchase. I'm curious then how you progress and mature the product. And this goes back to the 2 iterations you mentioned. I'm curious about how you went about that, and to wrap that kind of in a box a little bit, I'm looking for how you build your roadmap. How do you go about deciding that, okay, this is the next most important thing to build or to address?
In short, I would say that the product has really matured from detect and explain a KPI movement, which is what we started out with, to a broader decision system, right? In the early days, we're like, let's prove that we could spot changes and explain them. Now the product is more of a full loop. We think about it as detect, explain, act, and learn. So we call it DEAL, right? So detect, explain, act, and learn. So detect basically means the system finds something that matters, right? Explain basically means bicycle investigates the likely cause, but a subsection of explain is actually focus, right? Focus means it figures out where to look. Not every movement deserves the same attention. A KPI can move because of a tiny segment, like a particular city, a particular iOS version, or because the whole business is shifting. Product has to separate the noise from signal. So can you find these segments? So that's the focus part of the explanation. But the explanation itself then looks across business data, operational data, sometimes technical signals, and then shows the evidence. And then act basically means the system helps the team takes the next step. That could be starting with a recommendation, but then progressing from there to like actually creating a task. Can you adjust a campaign? Can you notify a partner? Can you change a routing rule in payments or preparing a decision for approval? So that's like the core system. So in terms of progress, there are 2 big things I would say as part of the iteration. Once we created the core system, when we looked at the power of LLMs, we understood that if what we created was an automated data analyst, the LLM can actually function as an automated business analyst, where it's bringing in a strategy and it's orchestrating and it's actually suggesting all the core explanation steps, all the core actions that can be recommended. It actually comes up with that list. So that was kind of one big iteration. And the next iteration was when things went agentic, we actually then started building, how do you go from raw data where the agent actually picks up all the onboarding, all the mapping, et cetera, all the heavy lift that a customer has to do to map data to our system. And the agent now actually just sits on top of Snowflake, sits on top of BigQuery, and then maps it basically automatically. So that's the progression part. Really quick on the roadmap, it just comes from repeated customer patterns, right? So when we talk to 2 or 3 retail customers who have the same type of checkout problem, that becomes a template. For example, they bring up promotions, then we're like, okay, that's what it is. When multiple travel companies need to understand supplier performance, that becomes a reusable agent, right? So everything becomes a reusable agent. When payments teams keep asking about the authorization rate by geography, by BIN, etc., again, that pattern needs to be stronger. So it's not just a feature list, but whatever is recurring in terms of the conversations we have, what decisions are teams making again and again, and wherever data is available, but the cost of delay is high, and we can compress the time from the question to answer. That's really what we index on, and that's kind of really how the product has grown.
Okay, so I hear you saying we. Tell me about how you built that team. And what do you look for in those people to indicate that they are the winning horses to join you?
That is the most important thing. You can have the best idea, you can have whatever in terms of brilliant idea, etc. But without the team, you can't really do that. We look for people who are comfortable with when things are messy. And sounds very simple, but I think it's really important in how you really look at those people, right? Because not everybody is able to handle ambiguity. In this kind of product, you need people who can handle ambiguity. You're not going after an established category where you're like, yeah, we're just building another CRM. So let's do these 4 bells and whistles and put AI on top of it, and then let's sort of build that. So you need someone who can handle ambiguity. Customer data is messy. Working with customer data is always hard. Business definitions are all over the place. They are messy. Real organizations, when they're working with it, are messy. And the analytics part is an area of very high attention. So you can't build this from like a clean demo environment. So we look for people who have strong technical depth, but also patience for the last mile on what we're doing. A great sort of engineer and bicycle, I would say, can build the system, but we'll also ask, will the customer trust this answer? Because again, it can just be a number, right? Would the customer really trust it? A great product person can think about AI but also understand why a revenue leader doesn't want 5 explanations. They want the right one with the evidence. Otherwise, there's no point in using the product. And then there's some engineers who love complexity and who just focus only on complexity. But it's not just about being in love with complexity and working on complex and hard problems, because the user experience has to be simple. And that is the anti-whatever of complexity, right? If a customer sees a revenue drop, they're not necessarily looking for like super dense material and models or something. Like, they want to know, is this real? Is this noise? And if it's real, what caused it? So the team we have is a mix of like infrastructure, data, AI, product, and enterprise experience. And then we look for people who are direct, low ego, comfortable. Even if their opinions are strong, they hold them loosely, as they say. Because early stages, you're wrong a lot, right? Like you want to learn fast, fix it, and keep going. And then the last point I'd probably say is that curiosity, that is the foundation of anything, of everything. And definitely want people who are more curious and want to dig in.
This episode is sponsored by Mesmo. If you're responsible for reliability, performance, or platform architecture, you already know the problem. Telemetry volume is growing faster than teams can manage it. Mesmo addresses this by moving observability upstream. Instead of storing everything and asking questions later, Mesmo processes telemetry in motion, filtering, transforming, and enriching logs, metrics, and traces before they reach your observability backend. The result is cleaner data, reduced ingestion costs, and faster root cause analysis using the tools you already rely on. Mesmo integrates with platforms like Datadog, Dynatrace, and open source stacks, giving teams more control without adding operational overhead. This is especially useful for platform engineers and SREs supporting complex distributed systems where context and speed matter. To see how active telemetry works in practice, get a demo at mesmo.com/codestory. That's mezmo.com/codestory. This episode is sponsored by BrainGrid. Building with AI coding tools is exciting until the moment things start breaking. You ask for a small change and suddenly 3 other features stop working. AI gets confused, misses edge cases, and loses track of your intent. The problem is not code generation. The problem is planning. That is why BrainGrid exists. BrainGrid acts as your product management agent. It writes clear specification, maps UX flows, asks the clarifying questions you forgot to ask, and breaks big ideas into engineering-grade tasks that AI coding tools can build reliably. It guides Cursor, Claude Code, Replit, Windsurf, and others so they deliver features that work and keep working. Founders use BrainGrid to build real AI-native SaaS products without a technical background. If you want reliable features instead of fragile prototypes, try BrainGrid for free at braingrid.ai. That's braingrid.ai. I'm curious about scale, like where scale has been factored into your decisions, and that could be technology or business. And I'm curious about how you approached it, but also have there been interesting areas where you've had to fight scale as you've grown?
It's a moving target, right? Like, it keeps changing. We did build some of it to scale efficiently, but we also fought as we grew. So like a little bit of both, right? Architecturally, we knew from day one that this had to scale a lot. Our customers have very high transaction volumes. We're not dealing with a small dashboard. In fact, we have customers who send us about 500 million to 1 billion events a day. And I'm talking about like searches, bookings, payments, etc. And so we have almost 1 billion of those events coming in from customers every day. And these events are constantly flowing. Pricing changes, supplier changes, inventory updates, payments, etc. So what we designed Bicycle to work with is designed it to work with existing data infrastructure. We don't want customers to move everything into some new system just to get value. We connect to the data they already have and push computation where it makes sense, right? But we also have to fight scale in a different way, which is product scale. The harder scaling problem is not data volume, it's context volume. How do you narrow it down? How do you condense it? How do you get to like the right hypothesis, the right sort of reason why something's happened? And this is where we had to go into every company having multiple definitions, every vertical having its own logic, and which is why we narrowed it down onto verticals. A checkout problem in retail is not the same as a booking problem in travel. It has some parallels. It's not the same as an authorization problem in payments. So how do we build a system that has reusable intelligence and has underlying patterns, right? But still respects the customer's business context. And that's basically where the agent model really came in. We don't think of Bicycle as a generic assistant. We think of it as an agent that is got a very specific job, and checkout versus booking versus authorization are different jobs, but it needs to know how to think about that particular top use case, like whether it's search, payment authorization, and then it needs to understand domain. If you're a payment authorization agent, you have to understand issuers, gateways, PIN, geography, retry logic, etc. A supplier performance agent needs to understand availability, pricing, latency, etc. So that gives us a better path to scale, and that's why we're focused on smaller set of verticals, more like a set of focused analysts that understand specific business decisions.
So as you step out on the balcony and you look across all that you've built with Bicycle AI, what are you most proud of?
I was proud of the fact that we're solving a very real problem that's unsolved and that people feel every week. With all this attention on data, with all the focus on data, like people are drowning in data and dashboards, but this is like an unsolved problem. And then also like how we solve this with AI, right? There's a version of AI right now. It's very demo driven, right? Like it looks great for 5 minutes, but when you put it inside a real business with real data, real permissions, real definitions, real money on the line, it's a much harder problem. So I'm proud we chose the harder version. We're not saying ask any question and trust whatever comes back. We're saying let's build a system that understands the business and is grounded in your business sort of knowledge. And starting with the vertical foundation that we had, validates the metric, investigates the cause, and gives you evidence. That matters because analytics it is about answers, but it's also about trust. If a revenue leader doesn't trust the answer, they won't act. If a data team doesn't trust the system, they're not going to support it, right? So I'm proud that we've stayed grounded in that. That's like the real grunt work. Definitely proud of the team. It's not an easy product to build. It's looking at multiple different sort of areas, and especially the explanation part, having to go through you could go through an observability tool or a second session recording tool or a pricing engine all over the place, right? But to combine data, product design, enterprise workflows, and domain context and come up with that, you can either make it too complex or sometimes you can make it too shallow. And the fact that the team keeps pushing towards something simple, useful, meaningful, there's a lot of pride there.
Okay, let's flip the script a little bit. Tell me about a mistake you made and how you and your team responded to it.
One of them was underestimating how much context the system needs before the AI feels useful, honestly. Obviously, we are giving it the base context of, hey, here's a retail system. Here is basically more context about the sub-vertical of retail. So is it quick commerce? Is it a fashion retailer? Is it a large marketplace, etc.? So we seeded all of that, right? And early on, we were very excited by the idea that AI could make analytics more conversational, user could ask a question, system could answer, and then that's useful, but it's not enough, right? So the mistake was thinking that the interface is the product, because the hard part in analytics isn't typing a question. The hard part is knowing what the question means, whether the metric is defined correctly, which data source is a trusted one, what are the dimensions that matter. So we had a lot of moments where the product could just go in, and getting the data behind it is great when you see it for the first time, right? And the product could technically answer a question, but the answer didn't have the depth, right? And the team responded well because we didn't defend the original idea too much. We're like, okay, how do we do better? And so that pushed us towards better, stronger onboarding, validating KPIs, reusing decision templates, so that, again, that's rooted in the context that a company gives us, better cause analysis based off of that. And then it also changed how we talk about the product, because it's obviously not a chat experience, right? This is an AI analyst that has to be grounded in the business. And it basically gives you answers before you ask for them. That's the progression. And I think that was a really good correction. But we started with getting super excited with, we can just talk to data and get answers from it.
This episode is sponsored by Unblocked. Your coding agents have access to your code base. Maybe you even connected other tools via MCPs. But access doesn't mean context. Agents can't reason across MCPs. They don't know your architectural decisions, your team's patterns, or why the API was shaped the way it is. So agents look in the wrong place and deliver bad outputs. Then you spend time correcting. More loops, more tokens. Unblocked is the context layer your agents are missing. It synthesizes your PRs, docs, Slack, and tickets into organizational context that agents actually understand. So they make better plans, write higher quality code, use fewer tokens, and require fewer correction loops. If you're running Claude Code, Cursor, or any agentic workflow, Unblocked is worth a look. Learn more at getunblocked.com/codestory. Okay, Bhaskar, let's move forward then. What does the future look like for Bicycle AI? There's a lot going on in the industry. You're solving a big problem. What does the future look like for the product, for the team, and where everything's going?
I think of Bicycle as a cursor for the analysts, like a cursor or a Claude Code for the analysts. Just because Cursor or Claude Code came in, developers didn't stop writing code, right? Like they were still writing code, but it was basically like a force multiplier for them. So similarly, like we want to give analysts an unfair advantage by force multiplying what they do. What is the core problem we're solving? Like the best analysts today spend too much time on repetitive investigation. Something moved. What is the segment? Check device, check geo, check campaign, check SKU, check release, check multiple things and build the same explanation again, right? It's very similar to building a system when you code. It is repetitive. That work is important, but a lot of it can be assisted. But the strategy is still coming from them, right? So I think the future is that the Bicycle becomes the always-on analytical layer for these teams. And again, it doesn't necessarily always have to be like somebody whose job title is analyst, but you can actually start creating citizen analysts as well. But the Bicycle always-on analytical layer knows the KPIs, knows the business context, knows what changed, knows the likely causes, knows what actions are allowed, right? So we just focus on that path, go from signal to action. And it learns from how the team responds. If we made a decision or if we recommended an action or if we automated something, did we do the right thing? And so can we learn from that? And what that means for the product is that means going deeper into retail, travel, and payments, more agents for more specific decisions, better workflows, better governance. And what it means for us internally as a team is just staying focused, right? Because there's so much noise in AI right now. And sometimes it can become chasing a new model or interface, but our job is to help customers make better revenue decisions faster. And that's really what we care about.
Excellent. Let's switch to you. Who influences the way that you work? Name a person or many persons or something you look up to and why.
There's the usual folks like Steve Jobs, folks like Elon, who obviously are just in a different stratosphere and who inspire you. But I think having been in the Valley for more than a couple decades and worked with a lot of brilliant people, I think a lot of my influence comes from builders who are combining technical depth with practical customer empathy, right? Because again, technical depth can lead you towards like super complex, super hard problems, but that doesn't mean A, you have practical customer empathy, and B, you're building a great product. So I've always admired people who can go very deep technically, but still explain the problem in plain language, right? Can break it down, can have that kind of big picture. It was a big part of the AppDynamics experience because observability is a very complex technical category. But the reason we were successful is we mapped it to a very human pain. We mapped it to operators who weren't coding. And so we made them understand how to operate the application without understanding the code layer and everything else. And that's what I'm influenced by. I also pay attention to operators and people running payments, travel, etc. They often don't describe their problems in fancy terms, right? Like they just say, every Monday we spend 3 hours figuring out why this number changed. So that kind of sentence is important, right? Because it tells you about the pain and how do you then map it to what you're doing. So my work style, I would say, is influenced by technical builders, but also by operators who have to live with the product every day. And that's where you learn a lot of it from. And that's who you really simplify, right? Because the best products respect both sides, whether it's the builders and the operators, because under the hood, you have to build something that's like really strong. But then if you make the user actually feel the complexity, then you really fail as a product. So how do you combine both those layers? So you got to respect the builders, you got to respect the operators and have that kind of balance.
Last question. So you're getting on a plane, you're sitting next to a young entrepreneur who's built the next big thing. They're jazzed about it. They can't wait to show it off to the world and can't wait to show it off to you right there on the plane. What advice do you give that person, having gone down this road a bit?
I would say stay very close to the painful version of the problem, right? Because a lot of times founders start with the exciting version. What is the category? How do you map the market? Like, my pitch is really big, like this, the AI story and the product vision and all that stuff, right? But it can pull you away from the thing that really matters. You have to find the people who have the problem every week. You have to sit with them, watch how they work, ask what happens when the problem isn't solved, who gets the blame, how much time they lose, how much money they lose, ask what they've already tried before, ask what they don't trust. And a lot of these answers are actually really solid because that's what shapes the product. So that's one. And then second, which is very relevant right now, is that do not confuse speed with progress, right? Because you can build something so quick. Like you could just run something in a few minutes, see great results, do something over a weekend, come up with something amazing. With AI tools, cloud, etc., you can create something that looks really real and you can create it very quickly. But a company is not just built by shipping code, it's built by earning trust. The customer has to trust the answer, the buyer has to trust the value, the team has to trust each other, the market has to trust that you'll be around, right? So yeah, definitely by all means, move fast, but definitely be precise. And then I'd say the last thing is maybe build something specific enough. AI for analytics is too broad, right? I can tell you why checkout conversion dropped before your Monday meeting is easier to understand, which is why we're focusing more on those verticals. Specific problems create specific products, and specific products basically create trust. So that's probably the 3-part advice that I was thinking.
That's all fantastic advice. Well, Bhaskar, thank you for being on the show today, and thank you for telling the creation story of Bicycle AI.
Oh, I enjoyed it. Thank you. Thank you so much.
And this concludes another chapter of Code Story. Code Story is hosted and produced by Noah Labhart. Be sure to subscribe on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or the podcasting app of your choice. And when you get a chance, leave us a review. Both things help us out tremendously. And thanks again for listening.
Capital One's tech team isn't just talking about multi-agentic AI. They already deployed one. It's called Chat Concierge, and it's simplifying car shopping. Using self-reflection and layered reasoning with live API checks, it doesn't just help buyers find a car they love. It helps schedule a test drive, get pre-approved for financing, and estimate trade-in value. Advanced, intuitive, and deployed. That's how they stack. That's technology at Capital One.
Most people don't realize how much their personal information is being bought and sold every day. Data brokers are making billions pulling details about you from public records and the internet, and then packaging and selling it, usually without your consent. That's how your information lands in the hands of scammers, spammers, even stalkers. It's why you get endless robocalls and why ads seem to follow you everywhere. That's where Aura comes in. Aura actively removes your data from broker sites and keeps it off. They also instantly alert you if your information shows up in a breach or on the dark web. But Aura goes beyond data protection. With one app, you get a VPN, antivirus, password manager, spam call protection, dark web monitoring, and even up to $5 million in identity theft insurance, all backed by 24/7 US-based fraud support. Other companies might sell just credit monitoring or just a VPN. Aura gives you all of it, together, at the same price competitors charge for just one service. Start your free trial today at aura.com/remove. Protect yourself now at aura.com/remove.